Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. Mark Fisher is an in-demand international speaker, consultant, and entrepreneur. His core expertise in helping business owners achieve financial success and personal freedom through community building, leadership development, and creating healthy organizational cultures. With Michael, his business partner, he created Business for Unicorns in 2016 and has since worked with clients like Sony Music, Sylvan Learning, and the ACLU, as well as many of the leading fitness studios across the US and the UK. In addition to their consulting and teaching through Business for Unicorns, Mark and Michael also co-founded Mark Fisher Fitness, known as MFF, one of the most successful gyms in the history of the fitness industry, I believe. MFF has 2 physical locations in Manhattan and was recognized as one of the top 500 fastest growing companies in America in 2015 and Men's Health top 20 gyms in America. So with a reputation as the fitness home of choice for the Broadway community, and you'll find out why, Mark and Mark Fisher Fitness have been featured in Forbes, the NY Times, the NY Post, the Huffington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, among others. MFF has made waves in the fitness industry for its unprecedented growth, industry-leading results, and unique approach to culture, which I definitely want to ask more about. Mark has a BFA from Syracuse University, is a former professional actor, and has spent several years serving on the advisory board for NY City Centre's Off Centre. He is also a proud member of the Entrepreneurs Organisation. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's such a pleasure. And I've been actually really wanting to interview you for a long time because your gym was one of the first gyms I heard of when I moved to New York. And culture was definitely talked about. So I want to delve into that. But before we do, maybe you can give us a quick sort of rundown about how you even got into this health and fitness industry and where acting came into play.
Yeah, I think the high-level version is I was one of the people that found my way into the field because when I was in high school, I was very thin and I felt very not confident about myself. And I knew that I wanted to be a professional actor. And I generally wanted to make changes to my body, not like many people that start working out for purely aesthetic reasons. And long story short, I was not somebody that felt very comfortable in my body. It was not somebody that felt very athletic. I had a lot of insecurity about being what I perceived to be skinny and weak. And it was very challenging to go into gyms for me because they were just terrifying, which is a very unknown world for me. And the long and short of it is essentially over several years, I became comfortable with fitness. And I found ultimately I quite liked it. And throughout my 20s, pursuing a career as a professional actor, fitness really was the one thing that I could control. And I am a nerd, which essentially means when I like a thing, I really, 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 really like a thing. And I really, really like this thing. So as I was working as an actor, I essentially developed, like many performers, a parallel career. But for me, it was certainly not a day job that I grinded through. It was something I was really equally passionate about until the day came where I had to be honest with myself that my passion for training and for fitness had surpassed my passion for my supposed career as an actor. And around 2010, I decided that I really wanted to stay in New York City and no longer do the out-of-town work that had comprised a lot of my career as an actor. And I really started focusing on my business. And I had always been somebody with secret entrepreneurial ambitions, but there were limited outlets for it for me in my professional acting career. But once I was in town consistently for the first time, it allowed me to focus on the business side of my training a little bit because for the first time ever, I was able to offer ongoing programs and looking to create different business models that gave me really predictable income. And within a very short period of time, after launching a 6-week makeover program called Snatched in 6 Weeks, I was fortunate to have a lot of success particularly in the Broadway community. And as you mentioned, the brand is very offbeat. So our tagline is ridiculous humans, serious fitness. And we really live it. At that time, I was just a single ridiculous human. And I basically was able to leverage my passion for education and teaching and comedy and fitness and vulgarity and creativity, and produce a service that offered what I consider to be best practice as far as training and nutrition that was really steeped in the science of physiology and human movement, but deliver it to people that didn't feel spoken to by many of the existing offerings around fitness. So for some more context around that, we don't call our members ninjas because we think that's kind of boring, or we don't call our members clients, we call them ninjas, right? And they don't like the term gym, so we call it the Clubhouse, or more formally, the Enchanted Ninja Clubhouses of Glory and Dreams. Our mascot is the unicorn. People sometimes dress up or wear capes or wear no clothes at all. It's just a very eccentric place that we think has a lot of heart. We're quite proud of it. And essentially, it marries our desire to create a very fun, inclusive, inspiring, welcoming place for people that hate gyms, but still give them a really, really great fitness service. And that is how we got here.
It's amazing because a lot of people sort of try and claim that their gym is like lots of fun, and your gym is really different. And I can totally understand why you appeal to the Broadway actors. And apart from the fact that you have and are one, I feel that you just create this culture that's just like no other. But what's interesting about it is that you still get results. Or when I say still, it's not still. You do get results as well, which I don't think a lot of gyms believe that they could do if they weren't so serious.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there often is an inverse correlation between the skill and knowledge and proficiency of a practitioner with their level of dynamic humanistic charisma. And oftentimes you see people that are maybe really charismatic and really great at creating these really wonderful experiences, but they're not always really passionate about being very meticulous and thoughtful about program design variables or other elements that I think nerdy fitness practitioners would like to see. So, we're not perfect, but like everybody else, I think we're always looking to balance those things. But our dream from day one has always been, how do we balance the things that we want to do as fitness professionals with what creates the best possible customer service experience for the people that we're looking to serve?
I love it. And Mark, it's interesting where you came from in terms of you wanted to go to the gym in order to change your physique because you weren't happy with it per se. How do you feel about it now?
I don't think about it much now, honestly. Part of it, there's a number of reasons for that. Part of it is I'm a stone throws from 40 at this point. So my life has changed. My values have changed. It's not something I think about anymore. I think part of it is getting older, and part of it is also I think I've just done a lot of self-work at this point, and I just take pride in and identify and value other things about myself. But it is still something that, I'm still in addition to like my nerdy fitness side, I've still got a little like secret baby bro inside me. Because when I got into the industry, I was reading, a lot of things now that maybe I don't think are actually reflective of the best way to do things, but I was a skinny guy. It was the classic, if any man is listening to this, particularly if they're in the industry, the routes tend to be either like, I really love sports and I want to stay involved in sports, or you were the classic 1950s Charles Atlas-eyed skinny guy on the beach when the big buff guy kicks sand in your face and takes your girl. And I was certainly in the latter camp. So I actually have still to this day a fondness for bodybuilding and training for aesthetics. And it's something certainly we use when it is appropriate contextually when we're working with ninjas. But to some extent, I wouldn't call it a bait and switch per se, but I think another thing that's led to our success that could be useful for I think a lot of people in the industry is we're not shy about really selling the benefits that our members are looking for. And a lot of people, when they join MFF, essentially they're looking for a place that can help them actually lose fat that they don't hate being in, that doesn't make them feel badly. That's really it. They want to find a place where they can lose fat and not feel bad about themselves and where people are nice. And many people start with that as the express goal. And we don't mind that, but also being a hardcore psychological nerd, I would note that while there's nothing wrong with wanting to change your body, for a lot of people, it's what would be called an extrinsic motivation. Now, it's not wrong to have an extrinsic motivation. However, the higher levels of motivation, when you're talking about people that they're doing it because they're intrinsically motivated, which is to say, I'm doing this because I value showing up, or I value self-care. And because I value that, people like me behave like this, or they identify as somebody that works out. And I don't mind meeting the people where they're at, but I'm definitely like, my goal is to hopefully elevate them to those more sustainable and more robust forms of human motivation. And again, that sounds horribly academic, so that will never be on the marketing. Like, if you look at the marketing, I can't market like, come to Mark Fisher Fitness, come for the six pack, but stay to cope with the anxieties of modernity and existential dread, because like, that's not very fun. So I'm happy to meet them where they're at, but long term, although I'm not shy about helping people with their aesthetics, my hope is we can help them adopt fitness as a practice where they get to practice taking care of themselves. And specifically when you're looking at training at its best, for me, it's always been about a dojo and the sort of opportunity to practice showing up against adversity. So when you're in a training session, almost definitionally, you're putting yourself in a reasonably challenging situation, right? And maybe not every single session is a conversation to be had about training stress. You probably don't want to kill yourself every time. But I think this opportunity to put yourself in these challenging situations, and then importantly, a culture obsession at Mark Fisher Fitness is to do so with integrity, keeping the joints in good position, for me feels like a really beautiful, practical metaphor for, I think, how a lot of us aspire to show up in our life. That when we find ourselves presented with challenges, when we find ourselves pushed and in a difficult situation, that we respond to that with integrity and stability and consciousness and presence. But again, I can't really market that, because for a lot of people, they'd be like, that's a lot of boring words, guy. I just want to lose 6 pounds.
But I'm sure you can relate to that too, because essentially you started off there as well, in that you're all just concerned about your body image, and you grew past that and realized that you actually need self-worth no matter what your physique looked like.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's one of those things too, right? Because, we know, and I think most people understand intellectually that you're not going to be happy then, right? There is no then. There's no like, oh, I got this thing and now I'm happy. But, sometimes the brain understands things and the heart has its own volition. And like I said, I don't mind meeting people where they're at. Even though I think anybody who's in this industry for the long haul, because I think it's very hard to stay interested in this unless you're passionate about more than just aesthetics. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I would never want to shame, the ninjas when they're starting. Like, it's okay. Like right now, the only reason you're here is because you just really want to lose those 10 pounds. I'm like, I'm not going to make you feel bad about that. I think that's totally fine. And then, my hope is in this space, within this community, we'll continue to help you get curious about the benefits you see for this, so that you can add in other levels of motivation that are probably a little bit more sustainable.
So if someone comes along to your studio and they want to lose, say, 10, 20 pounds, what do you do with them? What do you sit down and tell them what classes to go to? Do you offer personal training? How does it all look?
Yeah, really, it depends on what the individual wants to do. So essentially, the main services we offer at Mark Fisher Fitness are we offer 3 and 12 month memberships. And then we offer our 6-week body transformation, like total immersive program called Snatched in 6 weeks. So the memberships, they can choose between how many classes they want to do per month and or how many semi-privates they want to do per month. So at the risk of, I don't want to get too into the weeds of nerdery for those that are not interested in this kind of thing, but broadly speaking, the classes are kettlebell and bodyweight generalized programming, often called metabolic resistance training. Basically, what that means is we're looking to create a metabolic effect and train with weights, with incomplete rest periods, moderate loads, keeping the heart rate elevated, in an attempt to, do some work and get people fit. It's great for just general all around long-term joint health. You're going to burn some calories. You're going to get stronger. You're going to have some fun. And that is a great solution for a lot of people. However, it is very generalized. So the semi-private model we offer can be thought of as essentially one-on-one training, but 3 people at a time. So you're still getting an individualized program. We have access to a lot more incremental bells and whistles as far as loading, as far as the equipment that we get to use. And for a lot of people, that is a great way to go. So that basically can replace a regular gym membership. It's a training-centric place. So at MFF, there is no open gym option. It's like if you're there, you're working with a coach in some capacity. And then if somebody does Snatch in 6 weeks, that is a much bigger commitment of time and energy and of education. because that program is built around 3 kettlebell classes per week over 6 weeks, which actually amounts to 18 sequentially progressed kettlebell classes, where we'll teach you the foundations of movement technique and get you moving well so that you can then move often and move with greater load and greater speed. But around that, there's lots of education, including a daily educational emails for about 8 weeks, including before and after, a pre-snatched workshop, which we call cheekily the Snatched Foreplay Workshop. They get about a 90-page workbook about nutrition and psychology best practices. They get a quick start guide for the people who don't want to read all those things. I'm like, all right, well, here's 800 words, read this, and then do these things. There is weekly check-ins and nutrition coaching. There is in-body body fat assessments before and after. There is a workshop after Snatch for how you put all the pieces together. So essentially, I think the other broad way of thinking about it is if people just want to work out, they can do the first option. It'll give you more flexibility and it's cheaper. If people really want a dramatic focus on their training, really invest in learning what they need to know to get the best possible results, then we have them do the Snatch program. And in practice, a lot of our ninjas do both. So a lot of people will start with Snatch and then keep on with classes. Some will start with a regular membership and do Snatch from time to time. And then we have some ninjas that just do one or the other. I think the other point that I would make, going back to your original question, what do you do when someone's like, I want to lose 10 pounds? Well, the first thing we do is make it explicit to them that you cannot outtrain your diet. You can't outtrain your diet. So as far as how that's addressed will depend broadly on the individual, because the actual MFF regular memberships don't really have that included. There's an email campaign that all members get. We will teach them the basics. And if they read it and are diligent, they'll do great. But as anybody listening to this knows, whether you're in or not in the industry, for most people, the challenge is not the knowledge gap, it's the behavior gap, right? So a highly motivated individual could learn to eat better. And again, you might get some results just from training. But if you're really looking to make a substantial change to your body, nutrition has to be a part of that. So they might decide to do the Snatch program, or our other option is Unicorn Nutrition Coaching, which allows them to work with an MFF coach in a very intensive, highly customized, personalized way over 3 months, where we provide coaching in whatever manner we best think that will serve that individual.
Awesome. So it sounds like a really holistic approach. And I assume you discuss lots of different lifestyle things within your 6-week course.
Totally. And
I'd love to ask you, so if someone comes along and they just want to participate in the classes, how do you go about making sure that their form is on spot in terms of how many people are in the class and assuming that they haven't had any one-on-one?
Yeah. So what we do at MFF that we have found to be effective is before people can take anything at MFF, we platoon them off into a class we call the Ninja Baptism. And that's where we baptize them in the waters of our culture. And in addition to teaching them a lot about the culture of MFF and providing one more educational touch point in the experience where we're just hammering these basics over and over and over, it also allows us to really slowly pull apart the basics of movement technique in this. And in fact, we don't, and I did a bad thing, I called it a class. We work very hard not to call it a class because it's a workshop. So for some individuals, and this is the thing that's interesting too, some people, MFF's not necessarily the right fit if they're not interested in technique. And, there are a lot of people, particularly in New York, that are quite fit from a cardiovascular perspective. They might be quite strong, but their joints are not often in a good position because they're tired. They just don't have great movement. And again, I don't put a value judgment on that by any means, but at our facility, it's a really important value for us to make sure people are moving well, because I think it's fair to say that's very important for one's long-term health and well-being and durability, right? So that workshop helps take care of a lot of it. And then from there, new ninjas have to stay in the Ninja Essentials class, which is one of the number of classes we offer for several classes, where we're just constantly focusing on the basics. At that point, there are never more than 15 people in a class at MFF. Admittedly, sort of a crude number. It's working pretty well. We're constantly playing with like, could we get away with more? And if anybody's listening to this does any sort of training, either as a client or as a trainer of group classes, we all know sometimes you can, if you might be training 4 people at a time, and based on who you got, you might feel like, oh, I just can't get this. Like I can't get people to move the way I want. And sometimes, you might have 25 people to move amazing. And you're like, I'm the best trainer ever. Look how well everyone's moving. So, again, that gets back to this balancing between my dreams as a fitness professional against the customer service experience and what someone is willing to do, what they're able to afford, what they want to do. And then from there, the fact of the matter is once we're in classes, I think one thing that we do very well that I'm very proud of is we just aggressively coach. So I didn't really know what group exercise was. And group exercise, now that I know, because a lot of my work is on the business side and consulting with various companies in the fitness industry, the standard quite often is that the instructor is doing the class along with the people. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I really understand that. If you're taking a spin class or like perhaps a Les Mills class, I get it. A lot of people want to be inspired by the teacher being up front and doing the class along with them and really inspiring them. And I don't think that's a bad way to go. But group training for me kind of came out of my background as a personal trainer first and foremost, but also as a dancer and as somebody that took dance class. And in dance class and in personal training, you're usually not working out along with the people. You're watching them very aggressively the entire time and giving them individual specific feedback about what they're doing well specifically, about what would make the movement more effective, and then perhaps offering different variations they could try to explore, either different tempos, slightly different positioning, etc. So that's kind of an overview of how we address that in the group model.
That's interesting. And so being a dancer, I assume you balance strength and mobility and flexibility in your classes?
Yeah, I think we do. It's something, honestly, I think we could do more of, and we're actually in the process now of looking at potentially creating another class offering at MFF that's really built around a lot of mobility stuff. So what we do that we have found to be very effective, in addition to, a fair amount of soft tissue work, which is, can be very, as you mentioned before, very important part of this holistic approach, which,
Oh, important call for you.
It's not my phone.
Oh, it's a random phone. There must be one in the background of my place.
Yeah,
we'll ignore that. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries.
We've got some music to talk along to.
Yeah, it's good to have a soundtrack.
Sorry, you were saying that you are actually thinking about a mobility class.
Yeah, so we're looking to create potentially a mobility class, because I think we could do probably some more dedicated stretching, more not necessarily stretching per se, but more dedicated mobility stuff. We include it into the model as is. We do a fair amount of soft tissue work, which is certainly a piece of that equation, which is things working with like a foam roller and lacrosse ball. We've actually also found a lot of value, I think, like a lot of people in the industry, in really using breathing as a large part of that, not only to help people recover better and downregulate the nervous system, but we find often when we do that, that also will help open up some mobility. But I think we're interested in exploring it in a more dedicated fashion, because we know, there's certain individuals that would benefit from doing a lot of it. And, on the flip side, there's some people where they're probably would be better off doing appropriate warm up, but they might need to do more strength training, right? So I'm thinking of if you're ever familiar with the work of, there is Thomas Myers, who is a fascial guru, often talks about some people are Vikings and some people are acrobats, right? And the classic acrobat is kind of your yogini with lots of mobility, but would benefit probably from doing a lot of stability. And of course, your Viking is your classic powerlifter that doesn't have a lot of movement through their joints. So again, it's all included in our system as is. And I'm excited to find other ways to offer options for people that would benefit from more of it and or are just interested in doing that kind of stuff. I think generally speaking, again, when you're looking at fitness holistically, and again, I'm very biased because I work with New Yorkers, and Allie, I know you know some New Yorkers because you live here. They like to go very hard a lot. And I both salute their enthusiasm, and as a fitness professional, I know that having restorative movement and just real diligence about our recovery practices oftentimes is the missing key to really get high level results.
Absolutely. It's not necessarily what you want, it's what you need.
So true.
And often they're quite different. So I'm glad you talked about that, actually.
Yeah.
So moving on then, I'm interested in, I guess, what you're doing more of these days, which is helping other businesses through your unicorns, businessforunicorns.com. Can you tell us a bit about like what sort of, I guess, entrepreneurial struggles you noted and what sort of problems, I guess, you saw that were needed to be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the story of Business for Unicorns was, I think, a little bit like MFF, and it was largely organic. And basically what happened was, because MFF had the success we had, both getting a lot of media publication, including things like you had mentioned, placing the Inc. 500, were like pretty credible business things that happened. Were pretty cool. And then, of course, part of the game is always marketing. And I think when people hear about MFF, you usually don't forget about the weird unicorn gym where people are, worshiping unicorns and dressed up like bananas and/or naked. It's a very eccentric thing that people remember because it's colorful. So what wound up happening was, because our brand was so distinct and our culture was so weird, I think understandably people were interested. So what happened was, I started getting opportunities to speak about MFF, and people started asking me and my business partner, Michael, if we could help them with their business. Now, Michael has a more traditional business background than I did. But at this point, I was like 2.5 years into this. So, to my credit, my answer was like, no, I probably can't help you. I'm making this up as I go along. I don't know what I'm doing. However, I am a super, super nerd, as I mentioned before. So one of the things that I got passionate about starting in 2010 was business. And, after several years of aggressively reading 2 to 3 books per week and several years of MFF continuing to have success, I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, well, I am feeling like we've seen some principles here at MFF that have worked consistently. And I would be curious to see if we can help other people. So then what happened was, for a while, I started working with people very informally. And I would note this was very similar to my path as a trainer, right? People asked me first if I would help them. I told them no. They asked me again. I said, okay, but I'll do it for free because I don't know what I'm doing. Then I went and got more training until I then started slowly charging money for those services. So after working with people for a while very informally, I decided that I quite like this. I had a lot of joy in helping anyone that works in business unpack what their challenges are and then seeing if and how I can serve them. The things that I think we have done best at Business for Unicorns, of course, correlate with the things I think we're best at MFF. And one thing I would note is very interesting is often, MFF is very colorful, right? So understandably, people are often like, can you do a talk on branding or do a talk on social media? And I'm always like, no, like, honestly, I don't really know. I don't think I'm that. I think I'm a little bit of a savant with those things. I'm not saying we haven't done well, but I don't have very teachable systems for those things because we've largely gone by on weaponizing, if you will, my personal eccentricities and quirks. However, if you're talking about something like management, oh boy, was I bad. Oh boy, was I bad. So the good news is the things that I was not good at right away, which is a fair number of things, I had to really learn how to do it. I had to go take courses and hire coaches and get books and try things and see what worked and what didn't. So to this day, generally, of course, the things I am most interested in, weirdly, tend to be the things I have the less natural proficiency in because I'm so excited and satisfied about the results and success I've had. So those are the things I want to help other people, which again is kind of correlated to like fitness, right? It's like I wasn't good at it. I struggled at it. It was hard. I figured it out. I came to love it because it was hard for me. And then I just couldn't help myself from telling other people about it. And then eventually, after working very hard, people, want to give me money to help them for it, which felt great once I felt I was actually adding value. Because I will note it is the funny thing about the business coaching space broadly and certainly the fitness industry one in general. And again, I don't mean this as any kind of judgment. Sometimes there is a quick rush where somebody has a little bit of success and then starts going right into, selling quote unquote high ticket coaching. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think there are certain things that are helpful to know that can't be learned until you've been around for a hot second. And I feel very, very grateful that now my job is spent, half of my job is in MFF, doing the thing, figuring it out, making mistakes, trying stuff on. And then the things I learn, I bring into my work with Business for Unicorns, whether it be presentations I give or the courses that Michael and I offer or writing content. And then I try to share with other people. And then, of course, in the process of teaching others, I then learn things that I then bring back to MFF. So for me, I feel very lucky because it's a very satisfying toggling back and forth between doing the work and then thinking about the work on a meta level.
I imagine we have a fair few listeners who need help in this area. Who do you actually serve and how do you go about that? You mentioned courses.
Yeah. So we do a number of things. So all my speaking work certainly falls under that. If anyone's interested and they're like, I want to watch the weird guy say weird things, but watch him move. You can check me out at markfisherhumanbeing.com. So I do a lot of speaking, both at conferences in the fitness industry, as well as more and more actually outside of fitness and just general business conference places and such. And then through Business for Unicorns, if they go to the website, we offer courses on particular pieces of particular topics that one might to work on their business. So for some context around that, we actually in the beginning, we offered this course called Inside the Unicorn, which was kind of fun on the one hand, because it was like, let's teach them like soup to nuts, super intro, high level survey of like sales and marketing and branding. And Michael and I just found ourselves so unsatisfied because, you only have 2 days. Like you can't teach anything in 2 days. It's like so high level. So what we wound up doing was, all right, what are the things we love most? And then making 1 or 2 day live events around them with 6 to 8, sometimes 12 weeks of follow-up implementation coaching. And we really wanted to make sure that was a part of it because I am somebody that learns very well from people talking at me. I'm a little bit unusual. Like give me like 2 full days of silence while someone talks to me and I take notes. I am in my happy place. But I've discovered as a real, one of my recent obsessions is studying adult learning and what can be called learning architecture. For most people, that's not an effective way to learn and help them actually take actions that change their behaviors. So we want to have some sort of follow-up coaching. So all of our courses include that as well. And then, like I said, there's a 1 to 2 day live event. The topics that we currently have offerings on include time management. We have a customer service deep dive called Clients for Life. We have one on building a team called Care and Feeding of Superheroes. We have one about coaching conversations, which is specifically the methodology we use at Mark Fisher Fitness with our clients, but also that we use with our team and also that we feel is just good skills to know if you're a human being and want to communicate more effectively with people to build better relationships. And then actually this year, we will finally be doing an inside sales and marketing course at MFF, which certainly I will be involved in. But as I mentioned, we'll probably be having some of our team handle some of that because frankly, they're a lot better at some of that than I am. So the courses are the main offering. We do a little bit of consulting here and there when we have time. Unfortunately, both Michael and I are waitlisted now, but if we have time in our schedule, we'll do one-on-one coaching with people. And then those courses are actually not fitness industry specific. So Business for Unicorns, although certainly we work with a lot of fitness people, the reality is all of those topics are broadly applicable. Regardless of the size of business, those principles will be universally applicable. However, we do know, and we know we come from the fitness industry, there are people. So the last thing I would mention, if anyone's listening, if you have a fitness business, which I really would define as like having your own spot and maybe an employee or two, because I think if you're just working to get up there, this product wouldn't be as useful for you. But once you've got your own spot, maybe 1 or 2 employees, we have something called the Unicorn Society. And that essentially is a private coaching group of fitness business owners that work with Michael and I on a weekly basis. And that includes access to all of the courses, private Facebook group, bi-weekly coaching calls, unlimited one-on-one coaching with Michael and I if people want to get on the phone. And that's been really quite a joy because it's allowed us to go so deep with people and just build this other fun, wonderful community of kind, supportive people that share our values and are kicking some real butt in their business.
That's great. And so have you still got more capacity to have people join?
We think we'll have some spots. Right now, it's currently closed, that we are accepting people for the wait list. The next time we will be opening up enrollment after we have a conversation to assess what kind of capacity we have. We'll be letting people in July. I'm not sure when this particular podcast will go live, but we'll probably start accepting applications and doing some interviews probably in early June. So if anyone is interested in that, they can go to businessforunicorns.com. And if they go to /unicorn-society, they should be able to find out more information about that if that feels like that's something they want to learn more about.
That's awesome. Mark, so where to from here in terms of MMF and also the business for unicorns? And on that note, where do you think there's still opportunity for brick and mortar gyms like yourself?
Yeah, I think there is. I think the reality is, I guess I'll answer that one first and I can go back a little bit about the vision for MFF and Business for Unicorns. I think that the reality is brick and mortar is hard and the margins are not forgiving in the way that online stuff is. So, it's an interesting moment because a lot of people that, 10 years ago might have wanted to start their own facility are now going online. So this is both, an opportunity and an obstacle. The online space has been very interesting to watch the past few years because so many people have moved their business online that it has also gotten incredibly competitive in the past 3 years in a way that even 3 to 4 years ago, it wasn't quite as filled with people. And of course, the advantage of doing online stuff is you can train anybody in the world, but the disadvantage is you're literally competing against everyone else in the world. So brick and mortar, it's certainly not for everyone because like I mentioned, I do think, frankly, the stakes are just higher, right? You will have a real overhead that an online business won't have, certainly not the same extent. So you've got to really make sure you've got your chops. And I don't think it's going away just because I think consumers, it's not going away. Even if you look at things like Peloton and Mirror, and I think those things are awesome, but I don't really see them taking away business from people that want an in-person experience. I think it's just like making the boat bigger and just making more seats at the table. For some people, that's going to be a great solution. In the way that I think online training does the same thing. But I think there are still a lot of people, and I don't see this changing anytime soon, that want to go to a place and have an expert tell them what to do and have it be an extension of a community and a relationship, even if it's just with a personal trainer. So I think brick and mortars are here to stay. And again, I think that, it's just going to keep changing over time. Certainly the past 10 years, we've seen the rise of the boutique fitness studios, largely MFF. We're what one might call a training centric boutique studio, as opposed to more concept ones that are, about spinning or about other modalities. I think we're going to continue to see that rise. So I think I'm going to be interested to see what happens with the big box gyms. But even them, I don't see them going away, right? And the thing, I think the market is going to continue to change. I think consumers, of course, will continue to change. But the reality is, I think sophisticated operators in any of those spaces, if you really know what you're doing, if you're clear on your mission and your values and your vision, if you're clear on who it is you're looking to serve, and if you really have the business chops to understand marketing and sales and management and finance, and you're really tracking your numbers on a weekly basis, if you're doing all the boring business stuff that I don't find boring, I find it thrilling actually, with like clear quarterly and yearly goals, you'll be okay. Right. And I would say that, my email is mark@businessforunicorns.com. If anybody's listening to this and you're like, I don't know what to do, I kind of want to do that. Well, shoot me an email and I'm happy to chat with you. I'd love to help if I can. To go back a little bit in brief, I think your first question you had asked, Allie, was, what do I see for Mark Fisher Fitness and Business for Unicorns? The honest answer is, I don't know. We'll keep figuring it out. But I do think MFF, we will, I think more likely than not, we'll probably be looking for a third location, at least looking for a third location by the end of next year. I think we've learned a lot in the past 2 years having successfully run 2 locations about what that might look like. And I think collectively we're interested in it. I think, 10 years out, I see us as, maybe having 5, maybe 7. And we're actually right now going through a process with the team and figuring out, because largely with MFF, even though I am a co-owner and I'm still very involved in MFF, I think we need to make that decision together as a team, particularly among the leadership team, because the reality is Michael, my business partner, is focused mostly on Business for Unicorns. I'm certainly very distracted living half and half. So I think we kind of need to collectively figure out what is our vision as it relates to what is our particular dreams for our lifestyles, because there are pros and cons to different approaches, right? Like our lives will look very different if we just kind of keep doing what we're doing, but trying to do a little bit better, versus if we're like, let's shoot for the moon. Let's try to get like let's expand outside New York into the greater metropolitan New York area. And let's shoot for 10 clubhouses. So I will want them to be involved in that decision. And then Business for Unicorns, I imagine we'll keep doing more of what we're doing, but look to continue to grow the Unicorn Society, maybe start to expand courses. We're considering actually getting a space here in the city because we do so much live events. And I think there might be value in us being able to create a home for people to come to. But I think that is the one that, because it's so organic, and now that I've been doing business long enough, like I can appreciate Business for Unicorns right now has been so beautiful because we're just like, oh, I think people might want to buy this. Hey, everyone, I'm doing this thing. You want to buy this thing maybe? And then a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll buy it. I'm like, cool, great, we'll make this thing for you. Now that is a good sign, right? If you're running a business, and this happens a lot with, I think, greener business owners, like, well, I don't have to market. I just it's all referral. I sell stuff and they come. Well, listen, that is a really, really great sign. It's really beautiful that's happening. It is also correlated with the business not being mature yet, right? Because to have a mature business, you need to have some volition over those marketing channels. You can't just rely on people showing up. But, in your first couple of years, if you're making up as you go along and you're just finding you're getting amazing feedback and people are sending other people your way, that is amazing. You should enjoy that. So that's kind of where Business for Unicorns is right now.
That's a great summary. Thank you, Mark. And before I let you go, I've got to ask you a bit of a personal question. I haven't looked at your body close enough to know. Do you have a tattoo?
I do have a tattoo. I have several. Tell
me more, or maybe even just tell me about one of them.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I guess I can tell you in brief about all of them. So first tattoo I got, I have a very cliche, but I have a koi fish on the inside of my right arm. And I got that, I had wanted a tattoo for several years at that point. I kept being afraid, oh, I want this thing. It's in my body forever. Like many people that don't have tattoos, that's always their concern. But I got it in many ways as a commemoration of MFF, right? Because the mythology, in Japanese mythology, the koi fish is they swim upstream. And then if they make it all the way upstream, at the end of their life, they turn into a dragon. And my 20s were really beautiful and they were very challenging. And by no means do I suggest I'm all the way up the river. By no means do I suggest that I don't have a lot more work to do or further to go. But I feel like I really turned into who I want to be with the advent of MFF. So that's why I got that koi fish. On my left.
So let me guess, your next one is a dragon, right?
It's funny you say that. I joke that I'll do this, but then I'm like, I'm totally kidding. But then I'm like, but I'm not totally kidding. I've joked that if I keep going, because this tends to happen. May I ask, do you have any tattoos, Allie?
I don't.
Okay. It tends to be you'll hear if you do one, you start, and everyone says you get one, then you're like, now I feel lopsided. But I'm joking that one day that koi fish, I want to make a tattoo of it coming across my shoulder and turning into a unicorn dragon, which again, I'm 99% kidding and maybe 1% kind of serious.
Cool. So what's your second one?
Second tattoo is just a simple one in typeface. It says believe on my forearm. It's something we talk a lot about MFF. So again, getting to the nerdy background, hopefully not too academic MFF. We've always talked about MFF and behavior change broadly as an exploration of belief systems, right? What we believe to be true about ourselves, what we believe to be true about the world. MFF has a number of weird things that we say, and belief is a weird term that we all use, which is shorthand, a weird way of saying believe. And that particularly came out in the beginning of MFF when we were we were just a bunch of people with funny hot pants and a dream about fitness. That was really important to believe because we were on a wing and a prayer there. But it's become, it's a very important thing I think we think about a lot. And I know that I at times still benefit from reminding myself the importance of belief. I think anyone that's introspective and intellectually serious should have doubt from time to time. But I think it is only through belief in ourselves, in our mission, in whatever it is we're working on, that I think we're able to really take meaningful, massive actions required to really make a dent in the world and really give the world the gifts I think we all hold inside, right? Because another thing we talk about often at MFAP is, 100% belief, 0% certainty. And to me, there is that balance between, on the one hand, I want 100% belief and really willing to do the thing. But I always want to have that door open for further evolution of my thought process, to learn something about myself or the world that I don't yet know. And since I suspect that process will never end, that is how I think about the balance between having enough belief in and willing to take the action and do the thing and not wait till you're 100% sure, but also not to become strident or dogmatic or believe your own press or run to the issues when you become so certain that you don't allow space for further evolution and further development.
That is so cool. Great. And what's your last one, or your others?
Yeah, I do have one more. My final one, I'll just say briefly, is basically just a ocean tattoo that I got on my right forearm that I got recently. And that one really has to do with growing up on the beach. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, so the ocean has always been very important to me. I think, the ocean is this very powerful, mythical, epic thing. I've always been attracted to extreme scale. And I think when you're standing on an ocean, you're looking at the Atlantic Ocean, and it's like there is so much out there. There is something I've always found about that to be humbling and soothing. And I also think the ocean is this, it's just amazing because on the one hand, it's this unbelievable balance of stability and chaos, right? The microcosm of the ocean is always chaos. If you're looking at waves, even on like a mild day, it's going to be choppy. If you're right there at the shore edge, there is chaos and there's ebb and there's flow and there's creation and destruction. But when you look at the ocean on the macro, it's stability. It's this thing that is so important to the functioning of the earth. And when looked at from space is like one of the most important stabilizing elements, certainly the source of all life on this planet. So at any rate, the ocean's been very important for me. And that is part of why I wanted to have something on my arm as a talisman. And I think also a symbol of personal power for if and when I find myself doubting myself, as Lord knows I do from time to time, allow me to get in touch with, I think this sense of my own volition and my ability to impact the world.
I can really resonate with the ocean becoming like water. It's amazing. Look, Mark, thank you so much for all your insights today, and I'll include everything in the show notes so people can find out more about you. Thanks again.
Pleasure.
For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ally.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and subscribe.